Ever feel like you're constantly churning out new content, but your customers still don't get it? What if I told you that repeating yourself more, not less, might be the key to building a marketing message that sticks? Today, we're breaking down the power of content buckets, a simple strategy to streamline your content creation, build consistency, and make your brand unforgettable. Let's dive in. Hey there, this is Corinna Bench, and welcome to the My Digital Farmer podcast. In today's market, it's not enough to just grow your product. You've got to know how to sell it too. Welcome to the My Digital Farmer podcast, where we reveal online marketing strategies and tips to help farmers like you get better and more confident at marketing. Learn how to find more customers, increase your sales, and build a strong brand for your farm. Let's start the show. Well, welcome to episode 302 of the My Digital Farmer podcast. I am your host, Corinna Bench, one of the farmers at Shared Legacy Farms out in Elmore, Ohio. I'm also the founder of MyDigitalFarmer.com, which is all about trying to help other farmers like you get more confident in your marketing and sales strategy so that you can grow a profitable farm business. How's everyone doing today? Welcome back to the show. Big shout out to all of my regular listeners and my binge listeners. So glad you're here. If you're new to the show, thank you for giving it a shot. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and go check out my first 10 episodes, especially if you are new to the marketing space and you're a little green, you need to learn the lingo because I designed them long ago to be an on-ramp into the marketing space. You can also get onto my email list. That is a great way to learn the ropes. You can do so by going to mydigitalfarmer.com/subscribe. And when you do, I'm going to send you an email like every 5 or 6 days for about 3 months. And it's basically going to walk you through the jungle of marketing and teach you the key principles, the tools you need, the people you should be following, the things you should be building first. It's going to help you a ton. So mydigitalfarmer.com/subscribe for that. Today's episode is sponsored by my friends at Local-Line. If you're like me, winter is your downtime to plan and prep for the upcoming growing season. Set yourself up for success with Local-Line, the best sales platform built for farms. Local-Line is the most comprehensive software for farmers and food hubs that's out there, selling direct to restaurants, schools, wholesale buyers, running a CSA, and more. With features like e-commerce, automated inventory management, they have subscriptions, a box builder, point of sale, and more. Local-Line helps you grow sales. It saves you time and streamlines your operations. In fact, on average, this is cool, farms that use Local-Line grow sales by 23%, and they increase their average order size by 9.5% annually. So, ready to switch to sales software that does it all? Local-Line has no setup fees, no sales percentages, and your onboarding manager will migrate your storefront for free, so you'll be up and running in no time. As a podcast listener, Local-Line is also offering a free premium feature for 1 year with your subscription when you use my coupon code MDF2025. So to claim it, go to mydigitalfarmer.com/Local-Line and then enter that coupon code MDF2025. Don't wait. Start your season strong with Local-Line today. And now back to the show. How is it already March again? Is anyone else surprised at the pace of this winter? For those of you who are new to the show, and to my farm, you may not know this, but we actually structure our farm business in such a way that we get about 3 months off in the winter. And that means that March is actually when we begin to get on the on-ramp again, get back into the greenhouse, and slowly rev up the production part of our farm lives. And I've had an amazing winter off. It's been selfish, but in a good way. I've been continuing to heal be with my family. I've read a lot of books, done a lot of personal growth, wisdom seeking, and resting. And I like it. I'm going to keep it in my life. This coming month, inside of Farm Marketing School, I am going to be focusing on lead generation strategies, specifically the lead magnet. And I'm hoping to do a special bonus call this month where we actually look at some of the lead magnets that our students have created. And I also want to do a quick demo of how you can use ChatGPT to help you improve your lead magnets and, frankly, flat out write them for you, the first draft. It's pretty powerful. So if you haven't built a lead magnet yet and you want to get real serious this coming season about growing your email list, growing your leads, because that is an important part of building your customer base. They don't just turn into customers right away. You have to warm them up, and you need a process for that. And that's partly what the lead magnet does. And if you want to finally make that happen and make that a priority here before things get really crazy in the main season, then I invite you to come into Farm Marketing School because there's going to be some extra support around that particular project. You can subscribe at Farm Marketing School from month to month by going to mydigitalfarmer.com/FMS. There's no long-term commitment. You just come in, pay monthly, and when you're done, you leave. If you decide you want to come back a few months later, you just subscribe again. It's pretty awesome. Okay, let's move on to today's topic. We are going to talk about the role of recapitulating or repeating your core marketing messages over and over and over again. And we're going to look at this through the lens of creating content buckets or content messages. And I want to start out by telling a story that illustrates how this works and why this is so effective. Because it recently just happened to me in my own gut healing journey. So I am a classic case of marketing where I have a problem. I was sick. I'm trying to heal my gut. And I have been searching for answers for the last probably 8 months when I realized that conventional medicine was only going to get me so far, and they really didn't know how to handle this and didn't have a lot of tools for this. I started having to just look it up myself. And of course, like many of you, I go to places like YouTube, or I go to Google, or I start looking up books on Amazon. I started Googling podcasts, and I found my way through this maze of gut health to a few different influencers. And I have started listening to their podcast, binging really. When I was very ill and kind of quote unquote desperate for answers, I was binging content. I was reading as much as I could. And so there's one particular doctor whose name is Dr. Gundry, who is currently in the front running position for me as my primary influencer. So I've had a lot of different functional medicine doctors that I have followed. Some I've even worked for or worked with. Dr. Gundry's work is the stuff that's guiding me currently, and I'm using his plant paradox diet to heal myself. When his stuff started working for me, it made him more credible in my eyes. He became more of an authority. So I started to want to read more of his content. So I went to his podcast and binge listened to many of the episodes. I have read most of his books and checked most of them out from the library, some of them I own. I've bought many of the cookbooks that he's written. I have watched a lot of the YouTube videos. And it's interesting because I'm starting to see the same kind of information in his content. He's repeating himself. Now, at first when I noticed this, I was a little disappointed because I thought, well, that feels like he's cheating. You know, he's luring me in with the promise of a new book. And I go check out the book and I read the first half of it. And the first half of it is usually actually new information or a lot more detailed about something that he's just recently learned. But then the second half of the book looks like it's been copied and pasted from the other books he's written. And I thought, well, half of this book is old material. Like, it's literally the same stuff with a few different recipes at the end, but it's the same chapters, the same copy paste from his prior books. And then I thought about it through a different lens. I was like, well, actually, this is really brilliant because he has a core message. He believes in his lectin theory so much and in his yes-no food list, and that if he can just get people to buy into that and follow that for 6 to 8 weeks, they will see such dramatic results that they'll continue and they'll kind of turn into apostle of his, which is sort of what's happening to me. And I thought that's really smart messaging. All he's doing is taking the same news, the same content, the same core message, and packaging it in different ways, in different books with different book covers, book titles. Or I'll focus the first half of this book on, a certain aspect of this story. But at the end of the day, what I'm really trying to get people to do is to adopt the lectin-free lifestyle. And ever since I've noticed that, or kind of saw that little breakthrough, I see it in all of his content. So his YouTube channel, his podcasts, they are repeating themselves. He has similar stories that come up again and again. He has, I want to say a few weeks ago, he had an episode that was why to think twice about eating oatmeal. So he splintered off this one small little example of a lectin food like oatmeal, and how he's saying you shouldn't be eating oatmeal anymore, especially if you are someone who might have a leaky gut. And he's just talking about the oatmeal specifically. And yet it ties into his bigger message of avoid lectins, right? So he can still preach that message throughout it, but he can focus in on one very specific lectin food and talk all about that and alternatives to oatmeal and why oatmeal might be bad for us, etc. So I was just really struck by this. And he has got an amazing sales funnel, my friends. If you start falling into it, if you start listening to his podcast, or even just Google his name, he will start appearing in your Facebook feed, in your Instagram feed. He'll be everywhere. If you get onto his email list, he has an amazing nurture sequence, holy cow, and great promotions. Like, he's just aced email promotions. So I have a lot of respect for how he works as a marketer, but I also have a lot of respect for him actually as a health provider. And I wanted to use that as an example because this is, I think, what we could be doing more of in our own marketing. That if we are really clear about what is our core mission, what are our core beliefs, what are the core teachings around our product and our service, and if we just beat that drum over and over again, that is an effective way to pull people in. I mean, it's worked for me with Dr. Gundry. I still listen to all his episodes, even though I've heard the information before, because I'm hoping that maybe there's something new in this one little shred of content that I'm hearing. But it also, I think, indoctrinates me because I feel like I'm now a part of his clan of people that believe in him. So when he repeats this message, I find myself nodding my head in the car as I'm listening to the podcast. I'm like, yep, I've heard him say that probably 10 times now, but it just reinforces the belief, don't eat the oatmeal, right? And now I want to be like an apostle for him and kind of preach that to people and say, hey, just try this and see if it works for you. If it doesn't, great, but you'll know within 8 weeks. So the insight here was sort of this idea that repetition creates familiarity. And I think that he was doing that repetition intentionally. I think there's a whole bunch of other cool medical things he could be talking about, but he keeps coming back to the same stories and the same key points and just splinters out little examples, but comes back to those points because he doesn't want to make the message confusing. And he has a very clear intention. I want people to stop eating lectins, right? So when people hear the same message over and over and over again, this is kind of the takeaway for us today. they begin to believe it. Not only that, but we remember it. We feel like we're a part of that community. And then we start telling other people that message too, right? We become a part of the bullhorn. So if a well-known expert like Dr. Gundry is simply repeating the same, 5 to 10 messages again and again and finding creative ways to do it, then I want to argue that we should be doing that too in our farm marketing. And maybe it's just as simple as figuring out what are those same messages that we need to keep saying. So stop, trying to reinvent the wheel every week with brand new content, but instead figure out what's the core message, and don't be embarrassed if you feel like you're repeating yourself and saying the same stories and saying the same sentences and writing out the same kinds of posts and taking the same kinds of pictures for social media. Like, repetition is a good thing. There is this myth out there. I feel the pull too. Okay. So I'm raising my hand of I need new content all the time. I need to constantly come up with something fresh and exciting and a new idea. And I think that what's maybe more true is that new eyes see old content all the time. I'm going to say that again. New eyes or new potential customers, prospects, are seeing old content all the time. And in fact, they need to. I think we think too often that a person, let's just pick on social media, but let's just say we have a follower and we put something on social media today, and we just think that all of our followers see that piece of content and absorb it and indoctrinate themselves with it. And then when we post again, we think that all of our followers are seeing that one too. And they're also watching all the reels that we've posted, right? We just have this idea that all of our customers and all of our prospects have tuned into us nonstop, when in reality, that is just not true. The algorithm tells us that it's more like 1%, 1 to 3% of your content is being seen organically in the feed at all. And if they're paying attention to it, great. But most of the stuff that we're putting out there is getting lost in the ether, is just disappearing into the void. And so when a new prospect comes onto the horizon, they need to hear the messages that we've already said, right? It needs to come back around because they're not going to necessarily go hunting and searching for it. We need to be repeating ourselves. You think about the big brands like Nike, for instance, and they have their tagline of just do it. And that tagline comes back around again and again in dozens of campaigns, each with a fresh spin. And we can do the same thing. We just have to build a different angle, but use the same core message. So how do you build a simple system for repeating that core message without sounding boring? That's sort of the question, right? And that's where I want to get into this concept of content buckets, or content pillars might be another way that you hear this talked about. I think there's a little bit of a distinction between those two terms. We're going to talk about them in terms of content buckets today. So a content bucket for me is like the 5 to 10 core themes or topics that represent my farm's brand message. Okay, so think through that example at the beginning of Dr. Gundry, like he's writing a book about his thesis work or his core belief or the thing he thinks will save the world or save people's digestive tracts. And his message is avoid lectins. Here's my yes and no list. If you just do this, you will be 80% of the way there and a lot of your issues will go away. Okay. He believes that to his core. And so he's got to find lots of different ways to get to that core message, lots of different angles, lots of different book titles, lots of different podcast episodes, but that's his core thing. And there are a few other kind of core messages that come up again and again, but it's really the kind of those two. And so what is our farm brand's message? And we are trying to figure out what are the content buckets that are going to help us deliver that. Okay. Now, when we create these, it really helps streamline our content creation. When we sit down and do some promotion planning, we'll know what to post because we've got clarity around the core messages. And if we kind of accept that we're only going to have up to 10 of them, we don't feel like we have to have a never-ending content stream. These content buckets also reinforce the core message. So if you have a short list of things that are really important to you, then it's memorable. People do keep hearing it over and over again, like I have with Dr. Gundry. I mean, his podcasts are always a little different. He decides to laser beam focus on one small element or pull out and like summarize some things. But essentially, he's got the same information and he's just packaging it differently, right? But it's reinforcing the message because I'm hearing it in different ways every single week. I think it also saves you time when it comes to thinking about what the heck do I even talk about in my emails, in my marketing channels. If I'm going to do social media, what do I post about? We don't have to stare at a blank screen and wonder, what should I write? We have a guide. We have a compass. And I want to give you permission to repeat things that you've posted before, like literally repeat them. I have a Google Sheet where I have documented an entire year's worth of social media posts on my Facebook page for my farm. And granted, I think it's the 2023 to 2024 year. And I am so glad that I took that 2 hours it took one day to put that together, because I go back and stare at it and say, what was I even talking about in February 2 years ago? What are things I could be talking about on social media? And I see the pattern, right? And then I can look at the entire year and I see, oh, there are certain types of things that come up again and again. Like I see the pattern by doing that. And it saves me time because I don't have to sit there and go, I don't know what to think about. Now, if you have this content bucket concept in place where you've got your core messages, you don't have to, again, reinvent the wheel. You just go back to that list and say, okay, I really want to reiterate this again based on what's happened today or what's going on this week. I feel like these couple of messages will be easy to talk about, and I can find some pictures or stories that are going to do so. And it just helps move your customer forward and indoctrinate them into your brand. And that kind of goes to my last point here. It's going to train your audience. So the more you repeat yourself, the more you turn them into your ambassadors, they will start to tell other people your message for you. And they will buy into it the more they talk about it. They become your super fans. I want you to think of the content that you create in your marketing kind of like a TV series. Each episode fits into a genre that your audience expects. Just like if it were a sitcom, if it were a crime drama, maybe it's a cooking show. I know I love the British baking show. And we've come to expect that the different hosts of the show or the different contestants in the show or the characters in the show are going to act a certain way, right? And it all just kind of fits. And this is how it works with our content, that after a while, your own audience members expect to see certain things. They're expecting you to say the same things over and over again. They kind of expect you to show pictures of those tomatoes again, right? So don't feel weird about repeating yourself. They actually want you to do so. Today's podcast is sponsored by Farm Marketing School. This is my monthly online membership program for beginning to intermediate farmers that's designed to teach you the ropes of farm marketing, but also, more importantly, to help you actually build the most essential marketing assets that you need to have in your farm business if you want to thrive. Now, I know you know how important systems are. You have systems in your business for all kinds of things in the production realm, but you also need systems in your marketing and sales, especially if you want to scale up and get to that point where you can have a team, hire a great group of people, and be less and less involved in the minutia of your business. So inside of Farm Marketing School, there are over 15 different classes that you can take. You join for a monthly fee and you can have access to all of them. You can binge them all if you want, or you can be selective about which ones you want to deploy. They're each designed to take about 30 days, and you watch the training video, and then you actually build that particular marketing asset, whether it's updating the homepage of your website, or it's writing an email nurture sequence, or it's practicing writing a weekly email really well, or building out different kinds of promotion offers. So many different projects inside of there. I also give you a resource folder with examples and templates to shortcut the process. Sometimes I have bonus videos that give you a step-by-step of how to do the tech work. It's really good. It gets really high marks. So I encourage you in your off season to take some time and invest in building out the sales and marketing systems in your business. To join Farm Marketing School and try it out for a month, head to mydigitalfarmer.com/FMS. And now back to the show. All right. Well, I wanted to spend a little bit of time in this episode sharing some practical content bucket ideas that your farm could start using, because that's often a question like, well, how do I figure out what these are? And I think that there's some categories that you can at least look at. So if you want to jot these down, I'm also going to provide you with a worksheet as a bonus for this episode, which you can download at mydigitalfarmer.com/content bucket. I think it's 3 pages, and it's going to give you kind of a list of these ideas and a place for you to brainstorm other ones. This is going to help you take this material, spend about 30, 45 minutes trying to map out what are my core messages, because you get to decide that. I'm just going to give you some suggestions here, and then hopefully you can go through that worksheet. You can do it alone or get your team together or your business partner together and come to some agreement about, hey, let's just beta test this and let's kind of decide we're going to come around these concepts. So here's a really common bucket that I see in most businesses and across industries, and it's the pain point solution bucket. Okay, this is where you are addressing your customers' struggles. You're making sure that you're attracting your ideal customer, because if you know what pain point you cover and solve for them, and you talk about that a lot, you will attract those people. Just like Dr. Gundry talked about all kinds of things that had to do with digestion, and that's how I found him. I didn't find him because of the word lectin. I had no idea what a lectin was until I started following him and heard about his solution. I wanted to know, why do I have reflux so bad? Why is my heartburn so bad? Why am I having trouble digesting food? Those were things I was looking for. I was looking up words like gut health, and that's how I found him. So if you talk about your customers' struggles and you know what they are, you're going to pull in those people. Veggies not being fresh, veggies not nutritionally dense, don't know where my food comes from, pastured chicken versus grocery store chicken, like the difference in terms of how you raise them, egg label confusion. These are some kind of things that came to mind here where that might fall under this category of pain points. Another category would be myths around your product that you have to debunk. Or another way to think about this is mindset shifts. So what is something that your customer needs to believe in order for them to be ready to buy your product? So are there industry misconceptions that are out there in the agriculture space, in the food world, that we have to bust? And my friend, we're all nodding our heads. We know what they are. We need to beat those drums. We need to talk about them. And if you're worried about pointing the finger and making someone else look like the bad guy, and that feels a little uncomfortable for you, I get that. I'm right there with you. But I do think that this is something that we have to at least allude to, that there is a villain in the story for our hero, and we want to identify who it is so that we can help them avoid the villain or unmask the villain and not let it have power over them anymore. That's kind of how I like to think about it. Third big topic would be behind the scenes farm life is often a content bucket that I see. And this is where we're kind of showing what it really takes to run a farm. We're peeling back the curtain. Many of our customers, what they're looking for is authenticity and transparency. And I think this is why this is such a powerful content bucket, because it allows them to build trust with you, because they can see what is it actually like to raise animals this way on the farm, or how much work does it actually take to harvest those tomatoes and get them into my hands. And it shortens that food chain. So humanize your farm with those authentic moments. Social proof and success stories is another content bucket that you might put some of your stuff in. This is where you would talk about customer testimonials and you would point to the transformation. So Dr. Gundry does this all the time. He's bringing in people onto his podcast, for instance. He's interviewing success stories, customers, patients of his who had a certain problem and, miraculously, like 3 months later, they are symptom free. And these are powerful because for people like me who are still stuck in the throes of trying to get better, we listen to those stories and we think they have the same symptoms that I have. Actually, they have it worse than I do. And they did this protocol, this plant paradox protocol, change their diet, and they're better. And it helps give me hope, and I'm willing to try it, right? It also helps me pace my race and know, okay, I shouldn't expect results in 2 weeks. I'm still going to feel uncomfortable for a few months, but maybe by month 3, I should see progress, and I can then evaluate if this is hokey or if this is real. And that's what your customers need to see too. You're promising a transformation in all of this content. You're talking about the pain point, but you're also talking about the solution. And you're casting vision for them of this is what the promised land looks like. Here are stories of how our customers feel about our products, how much they love eating, and how eating is different in their life now because of this, how they feel differently about eating, and in some cases how their health is improved, right? And when you tell those stories, you show the transformation, you show the promised land, and that's really, really important. You have to future pace for people because they need to see that it works. You need to reduce the risk for them of taking this investment with you. Another content bucket would be in the category of educational or how-to content. So as you think through this, all these messages that you want to spin to your audience, what are the core things you want them to know? Some of it might be helpful, shareable, just strategy tips that are quick wins for them. I'm thinking about, for us, storage is always a really big problem for customers in the early stages. They just don't know how to store their food. So they're coming to us saying, well, my veggies just aren't fresh. They spoil really fast whenever I get them from places. And sometimes it's because the veggies have been there for a while and they're old, but sometimes it's because the customer didn't realize that they have to be stored a certain way, right? So we want to educate them on that. And when we teach them, 3 ways to keep your basil fresh for weeks, or different tips for how to freeze just about everything so they don't end up wasting food, that's really empowering for them. Or how to make pesto from all kinds of greens. I know some people know how to make pesto out of basil, but a lot of our customers in our CSA never realized they could make pesto out of arugula or parsley or kale or Swiss chard or any other type of green, frankly, right? And that always seems to blow their mind. So educational how-to content is also something that you could use to deliver that core message. Growing practices, for us farmers, I think this is kind of its own category. We talk a lot on our social media about the concept that soil is alive. That's one of our core messages. And I feel like this falls underneath this content bucket of anytime we want to highlight growing practices. Why is Farmer Kurt disking the fields? Why is he putting compost down here? Why are we putting leaf mulch down? Why is there plastic mulch over this bed? All these things about bed prep and soil prep. we often come back to the story of like, hey, did you know soil is alive? There's actually stuff growing underneath the soil. The microbiome in the soil is so important. The chemistry going on there affects whether the plant can uptake the minerals or not. Whether those vitamins get into the plant determines whether they get into the fruit, whether they get into your body and how nutritionally dense it is, and whether it's bug resistant, all of that, right? Like we just hammer down on how vital it is to take care of the soil. So growing practices. I think this also like speaks to your values, and you almost could say that whatever your values are should be its own content bucket. So are there certain things that are really important to you? And is there a way that you can create key messages around that? So for us, soil health is a huge value. Product spotlight is another content bucket. So making sure that we highlight our solutions to the problem that we solve for people. Specific products that are going to drive sales. Like I know for us as farmers, like we grow a lot of vegetables and I don't give all the vegetables and fruits equal time in my marketing, but there are some that really drive the sales that I'm going to spend a lot more time on. So our CSA subscriptions are huge drivers of our revenue. So you're going to see me talking a lot more about that bundled product, or the features that come along with that membership, or the box photo every week, or the unboxing, or talking about, teaching the skill of being able to take a bunch of random vegetables and build meals yourself from them. That's a skill you have to practice, and you can only do it if you take a whole bunch of things together into a room. Now, some of you might be asking, how do I find my content buckets, Corinna? How do I figure out what those messages are? That's a really good question. And I have a couple of things I want to bring up here. First of all, I have done an entire podcast episode called Finding Your Brand's Content Pillars. It was episode 23. So I will link that up in the show notes, and I encourage you to go back and listen to that and see if you can glean any wisdom from that. Another way that you can find them is by working through a series of questions. And I'm going to share those with you right now. I will also include them on the bonus worksheet, content bucket worksheet, which you can download in the show notes or just by going to mydigitalfarmer.com/content bucket. Got it? Content bucket, one word. Okay, so here are some questions. What are the top 3 to 5 problems my customers face? What myths about my farm products need correcting? What stories could I share to build trust? I noticed that Dr. Gundry does this a lot. He has, like 5 stories that he keeps telling over and over again, and they always serve the bigger core message. And sometimes I'm like, yeah, I've heard this story like 3 times now, but every time I hear it, it just reinforces the message. So don't be afraid to repeat your stories. What topics come up repeatedly in your customer conversations? Notice that. That's actually a really good way to find it. So get yourself into conversations with your clients at the farmer's market. And what do you find yourself that you keep coming back to? That's like your soapbox. Here's a really good one. If you had to write a book about your industry or your product, what chapters would you include? That's a really good one. That's going to help you see what's important to you. What core values or principles do I want my brand to be known for? And what is something from my message that I could splinter off and talk about in detail? Dr. Gundry does this all the time. He does it really well. So he has this core message of lectins are bad, and he will create specific episodes or blog posts or YouTube videos about an individual food that's on the yes or no list. So, for example, he might talk about avocado oil, and that's the whole focus of the episode. But at the end, he's weaving in how this is a lectin-free oil. He might do another episode on the topic of coconut oil and the different uses for it and how it is also on the yes list. And it comes back to that core message of there's no lectins in this oil. Don't eat the other ones because they have lectins. There's a whole nother episode about the seed oils and why they're bad for you. Again, going through the list of the oils that he would not recommend that we cook with anymore versus the ones that are okay, and brings it back to the bigger message of lectin or no lectin. Do you see how he's splintering off a very specific example and using that to beat the drum of his bigger message? I find that to be a really good case study, and I'm really giving some thought to what does that look like for my farm business? What is that one or two core message, and how can I find these small examples that then point back to the bigger message, and to make sure when I am telling the story of those small examples that I do link back to the bigger message. I tie it in to our bigger mission or the core problem that we're solving over and over and over again. Okay, the benefits of doing this content bucket work, getting clear about what we're going to be beating the drum around. If we're writing a book about our solution, what are the chapters? When we can get clear about that, first of all, it's going to keep our marketing focused. We're going to have a lot of clarity. Second of all, it's going to save us time because we can be efficient with our content creation. We can just plug it into a bucket and go, or we can look at the buckets and say, what's coming to mind right now? What is going on around me that easily fits into one of those buckets? And I'm going to just create from that space. Brand recognition, right? Repetition builds trust. Dr. Gundry is known as the lectin guy now. When I ask people, have you heard of Dr. Gundry? Those who have will say, yeah, he's all about lectins, isn't he? And I'll be like, yes. So brand recognition, we become known for a certain core message. And then SEO boost. Let's not forget that when we repeat key themes and we are using those keywords in our titles and our headings, then Google can improve our search rankings for us. We become known for that thing, that product, that quality. So another important reason to keep saying it, not just verbally, but in print as well. And finally, don't forget that part of repetition means you can repurpose the same content in multiple places. I learned this from Amy Porterfield many years ago, how you start out with one core marketing channel where your content's going to live. And you decide, this is where I am going to place my main message again and again and again. Everything starts here. And then from that core piece of content, you find ways to repurpose it and plop it in other places. So for example, for Digital Farmer, my core location where I drop content is this podcast. This is my main thing I do every week without fail. And then I can create a post about it and link it up to my Instagram channel at My Digital Farmer. I could write a blog post about it and link up to the episode. As it is, I have a show notes page that links up to the episode. I could create a weekly email where I point back to the episode and send it to my farmers and say, hey, here's the tip of the week. If you want to go deeper, listen to the podcast, right? Do you see that? So I have different places that are all trying to beat that same drum, but it all goes back to that week's core message. And so we want to be thinking through that too. When you're creating content, I'm guessing many of you are doing it on social media. Don't just let it go out once and fall into the ether. If the content is worthy of being repeated later on that week in another place, then save it, right? Put it into an email and put it in your weekly email to your email list, or you load it up onto YouTube and optimize it for that channel. And then make sure that you log where that link is on a Google Sheet so that next year or next month, if you want to highlight that video again and reference it, you can easily find where it is and you have a table of contents and you can repurpose the video. Or when you're writing an email onboarding sequence or an automation, you could take one of those pieces of content that you've written or created somewhere else and point to it. And that actually is the content of the email, to go and watch that video that's currently living on your YouTube channel that you initially made for your Facebook page, right? Do you see how we're always pointing back? We're taking this one piece of messaging and we're finding ways to repeat it. We're finding ways to point and connect the dots for people so they follow the rabbit trail. The great marketers do this really well. They never create a piece of content unless they know that they can do something with it at least 3 more times. And I think that should be a goal for all of us to try and get to one day. All right, well, that's all I have today. My final takeaway for you is that repetition creates recognition, and it also creates superfans and buy-in. I am a huge disciple of Dr. Gundry right now. And I think a lot of it is because I have allowed him into my mind, and I have allowed him to say the same thing over and over again to the point that I now believe it. And I'm willing to try it. And I am now actively on his plant paradox diet, testing it. And so I want it to be true, right? I want to soak in everything he has to say because I am seeing results and I'm so grateful to him. Your customers will have a similar reaction to you. So don't be afraid to keep coming back, talking about the same stuff, because your super fans who already know all that stuff now, they're not going to be annoyed that it's not new. Instead, they're going to be nodding their heads as they listen, smiling because they're part of the club who has found the way. Your homework for today, should you choose to accept it, is to define 5 core content pillars or content buckets and commit to repeating those messages consistently this season. See if it doesn't make things a little more efficient and give you clarity and help drive some of your content. Remember, your customers need repetition to internalize your message. So this is a gift that you give to them. Let's make this even more practical. How about you choose 5 content buckets today and then plan 1 post on social media per bucket for the next week. Let that serve as a framework for you and see if you think that makes it a little bit easier for you to come up with stuff to say. And don't forget, you can grab that content bucket worksheet to help you journal through all this stuff and brainstorm. That will be at mydigitalfarmer.com/content bucket. Okay, you can grab the show notes today at mydigitalfarmer.com/302. And if you need help building your marketing system for your own farm, I encourage you to join Farm Marketing School, which is your step-by-step membership for building a profitable marketing plan. Head to mydigitalfarmer.com/FMS to try that out for your first month. Don't forget, I'm also now on Instagram at mydigitalfarmer if you want more farm marketing tips. And you can join my email list to get weekly insights straight to your inbox. You can go to mydigitalfarmer.com/subscribe. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I will catch you next time for another episode. Remember, I believe in you. Bye-bye.